Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our October Council meeting. Council acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the Wadawurrung, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet, obviously, and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. It's lovely to see you again. We are meeting via Zoom, and hopefully in the next meeting we'll be back in the chamber. So thank you to everybody for tuning into the live stream. The great news is that we'll be able to welcome community members back in person to our meetings as of next month, which is fantastic. Not only will we be in the chamber, but it's really great to have community members in there with us, bringing in their questions as well. And of course, if you do like watching from home via the live stream, that will continue to be available as well. With restrictions easing significantly from this Friday and the vaccination rates in Greater Geelong so strong, we can now look forward to a very positive summer. And today, I think, gave us a little taste of it, and I think it's going to be even better tomorrow. So hopefully that's a great sign for the business community, who will, I think, be looking forward to enjoying a really peak, strong period. There's going to be a great vibe around the region as we do welcome the visitors back. The timing's perfect with the Christmas program rolling out this week. I was down at the waterfront this morning and this afternoon, and it was imagining the Christmas tree coming through was really great. So we look forward to that happening a bit earlier this year. Please take the chance to enjoy what's on offer with friends and family, and if you can, please continue to support the local stores, the cafes, the restaurants while you are out and about. Thank you very much for your support so far. Now, councillors once again will be asking for strict adherence to time limits tonight to keep it tight. I will note we have a couple of apologies. Councillor Mason wanted to be noted as an apology this evening as he's taken a leave of absence, and Councillor Nelson is also an apology tonight. We have a request for leave of absence from Councillor Sullivan from the 27th of October to the 18th of November. So I'd like somebody to move that, and we'll have a seconder as well, please. Moved, Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Are there any further requests for leaves of absence from councillors tonight? Not at this point. Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have item 7, 8 and 9. I'll be declaring a conflict with those particular agenda items.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Would you like to give us a bit of a quick explanation as to what the conflict is?
Well, I've been recently appointed as the Regional General Manager to AFL Barwon, and they cover those 3 particular agenda items. So my timing is very poor, but I apologise for that. This is how the agenda has rolled out this evening and how my appointment has come about in very recent times.
Great. Thank you for the explanation, and congratulations from all of us as well. That's really good news. And I think the first day was today, so you're right. Your timing was quite poor, but well done. Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? If there are, if they become known during the meeting, just please let me know. That would be great. I need a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of September 2021. Moved Councillor Contell, thank you. Seconded Councillor Sullivan, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. The next agenda item is the public question and submission time. Unfortunately, we can't take questions directly from the public virtually. However, we are continuing to accept questions and submissions online while the gallery is closed to the public. We have received questions from 10 community members for tonight's meeting, which will be read out by each councillor tonight, and then each person will also receive a written response via email, as well as having the question and response published in full on the city's website. It's important to note also that each councillor has read the questions that have been sent in. So on to the questions. The first question, which will be read out by myself, is from John Wallace. And the question from John is, given that the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue interim final UDF proposes building heights of between 4 and 10 stories, and these are likely to have specific impact for residential rooftop solar systems, how has the City of Greater Geelong acted to identify and protect the interests of properties with residential rooftop solar systems as outlined by Victorian Government Planning Amendment 2018? Now, I will go to our City Planning and Economy Director, Gareth Smith, for the answer to this one. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr Wallace, for the question and your continued participation in this important project. It is much appreciated. The impact of the proposed heights in the Packington Street and Gordon Avenue UDF on solar access has been modelled in accordance with the planning scheme, and it's very much consistent with that. Furthermore, as per the planning scheme, every new development within a commercial 1 zone or the residential zone in this area will be required to demonstrate how impacts on any existing solar energy facility mounted on the roof or an adjoining residential dwelling must be considered. So yeah, rest assured there's some good work there that's being done and will continue to be done as the area grows.
Great. Thank you, Gareth. The second question will be read out by Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second question we have here is by Kylie Lane. Now, in August 2021, a development permit application referral comment from the Environment Department team highlighted that there is no avenue to require retention of trees on that certain property at the time, but indicated that the subject site is heavily treed and provides habitat and amenity value for the suburb. Now, the referral response pleaded for an additional effort to retain as many trees as possible, targeting native and or large specimens. The applicants pointed out that, contrary to other town planning schemes in Victoria, the Geelong Town Planning Scheme provides only for controlled felling of trees native to Victoria, should they happen to be on the property. So the first question related to this from Kylie is, why does the Geelong Town Planning Scheme provide such limited protection for the existing mature tree canopy on private property?
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. The answer will be provided once again by Gareth Smith. Thank you, Gareth.
Oops. Apologies, councillors. Hang on, I'm just having an issue with my screens have all locked down.
Do you?
Councillor Sullivan, can you read through the next question and I'll read them out? I've just had an issue with my screens have all gone black on me with the information.
Question 2 from Kylie, Councillor Sullivan. That would be great.
Now, in the meantime, so question 2 from Kylie was about, could you please indicate how many development permit applications relating specifically to the Highton and Belmont area under the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme were referred to the city's Environment Unit from the 1st of January 2019 to the 20th of October 2021?
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan, and my screens have come back on, so I've had to respond a bit. I'll deal with this question 2 that you've just read out, and certainly thank you, Ms Lane, as well for the question. It's certainly an important application, the one you've been referring to. So the city's Environment Department has advised that it received 26 environmental referrals in Highton and 6 referrals in Belmont since 2019. And with regard to the first question that Councillor Sullivan read out on your behalf, there's a little bit more into this, but I'll respond to that now. So certainly the Council's Environment team was referred to the planning application for 2 Morven Court, which I believe the ones you're referring to in that application. And they recommended permit conditions to provide an offset for the removal of native vegetation. This is a requirement under clause 52.17 for native vegetation in the planning scheme. This is a statewide provision for all planning schemes in Victoria. Additionally, as part of the initial assessment of the application by council, we actually did, as in councillors in the city and officers, we queried the application about retaining as many trees as possible on site. The scheme, though, is not dissimilar to other municipalities as suggested. The planning scheme has general vegetation protections on private land in highly urbanised areas. It's not common for that in other planning schemes. That said, where development of 2 or more dwellings is proposed, there are landscape requirements, and this requirement sets out the landscape design plan forms for part of the application and the condition of the permit. The landscaping requirement under the ResCo states that the development should provide for the replacement of any significant trees that have been removed in the 12 months prior to the application being made. There are also other tools in the planning scheme that are used for protection and or enhancement of vegetation in some urban environments via a planning overlay. These planning overlays are used in site-specific areas, such as in the case of vegetation protection overlays, which we have multiple through the city, where the vegetation is part of a significant corridor or a patch that may contain species protected under the Flora and Fauna Guarantee Act. So it's certainly not perfect. There's opportunities to improve, but there are tools in there to help protect the vegetation the best we can.
Terrific. Thank you, Gareth. Very comprehensive response. Third question will be read out by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question from Yvonne Keon. Clauses 54-01.1 and 55-01.1 of the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme require permit applications to include a site description which describes the location of significant trees existing on the site and any significant trees removed from the site the 12 months prior to the application being made where known. Question 1 is, for the purposes of clause 54 and 55, how does the planning scheme define significant tree? And question 2 was, please indicate the number of all trees recorded in the site descriptions included in the following permit applications. There's one there for 16 Duggan Court, Highton, 60 to 62 South Valley Road, Highton, 11 South Street, Belmont, 2 Morven Court, Highton, 4 Taylor Court, Highton, 36 Meadowvale Drive, Warn Ponds, and 54 Barrable Road, Highton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck, and thank you, Ms Keon, for the questions. Hopefully, as you may appreciate, there's a fair bit of work involved in going through those past applications to review that information, which we are committed to doing. But with the questions just coming in the last couple of days, we will need another week or so, and we will write back to you with a response regarding to detail your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Gareth. Appreciate you taking that time seriously. Okay, question 4 will be read out by Councillor Murray. Thanks, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is from William and Katarina Marshall. In September 2019 and February 2020, Council adopted motions that formally recognised climate change as a global emergency and acknowledged that climate change poses a risk to the people of Geelong and Australia. It also recognised that the crisis requires a genuine and coordinated response across all divisions of the City of Greater Geelong. The City of Greater Geelong Annual Report 2020-21, tabled for consideration at tonight's meeting, lists the Deakin University Urban Heat Mapping Project commissioned by Council and State Government as a response reflecting the existing crisis. That report, currently available on the Council's website, was published in September 2020. It identified Highton as one of 7 of the City of Greater Geelong suburbs that are vulnerable to heat risk factors and that are impacted by heat waves and will increasingly be affected. The Greater Geelong Urban Forest Strategy repeatedly highlights the importance of canopy tree cover as an efficient tool to mitigate the urban heat island effect. So the question is, what steps have you taken since the publication of the heat mapping report in September 2020 to incorporate appropriate standards into the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme to retain and protect mature trees on public and private land? And I believe that's to you again, Gareth.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. And thank you certainly for the question, William and Katarina. So it is much appreciated. It's a really important topic, and I'm glad you've highlighted that report, which is a great piece of work by the university working with the council and the state. Certainly, since that was published late last year, officers have been in discussions about opportunities as a result of that report with state government to try to strengthen up tree controls on private land for existing and new developments across the state. In fact, at this stage, there's nothing further to report, but we do want to continue working with the government, see if we can utilise that type of information in the report to improve the scheme where we can.
Thank you, Gareth, and certainly good questions like that are a good way to keep awareness high. So we encourage questions, the sort of questions we're getting. Question 5 will be read out by Councillor Mansfield. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. So this question is from Barb Sheehan. The Geelong Urban Forest Strategy states that the most cost-effective and efficient mitigation tool to mitigate the urban heat island effect is an increase in tree canopy cover. In addition, Clause 4.1 of the Tree Management Council policy determines that the city will work with developers to protect as many mature trees as is feasibly possible. Despite this statement, trees are being felled at an alarming rate in Highton. I'm concerned that the existing planning provisions fail to protect trees and vegetation adequately and effectively in Geelong. The question 1, Could you please indicate how many trees were felled in Highton on review sites of development permits granted in terms of the Geelong planning scheme between the 1st of January 2019 and the 1st of July 2021? So I think that question is for Gareth.
It is.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. And thank you, Ms. Sheen, for the question as well and your continued interest in the Geelong Urban Forest Strategy, which is a really important strategy for the council. But unfortunately, there is a lot of research and investigation required to address that question, which we will do. And similar to the one earlier, we'll commence that this week, and with our aim to respond to you in writing by the end of next week.
Thank you. And the second question, in the proposed redevelopment of Highton Village, will any of the current trees to the east of Highton Reserve bordering on the village and the Highton Library be felled? If so, how many trees will be affected? And for the response, Guy Wilson-Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield, and thank you, Barb, for your question. Look, I'm pleased to report that no trees are proposed to be removed under the Highton UDF. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Guy. That's good news. Question 6 will be read out by Councillor Maloney. Thanks, Councillor Maloney.
Thanks, Marisha. This question is from David Potter. Actually, it's more of a sort of statement and a bit of a rev up really for us. It's with respect to the initiative of COG to have a Blue Plaque Heritage program that would identify Geelong's landmark historical buildings. Currently, Heritage Victoria issues plaques in Melbourne and other parts of Victoria, but City of Greater Geelong Council does not permit this, apparently. In Melbourne and other places, objects are included in the Victorian Heritage Register are automatically entitled to a blue plaque, and these are issued free of charge by Heritage Victoria. So David's query about this is, let's put Geelong on the heritage tourism map and highlight our amazing history and promote city pride. So it would be great to hear a response about that initiative.
Thanks, Gareth, again.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney and Mayor, on that. And particularly thank you, Mr. Potter, for the question. You raise a great point and a great opportunity to promote our heritage. So we really thank you for advocating the heritage in Geelong. Can confirm, though, the city does not oppose actually to its heritage places being acknowledged through the plaques or being interpreted through other signage. However, at this time, the city has not received any inquiries about Heritage Victoria plaques for specific sites. Some applications to construct new memorials has been placed on hold just recently until we review the current plaques and memorial policy is completed and endorsed by Council, which we expect later this year, possibly the December meeting. That's good news.
Great. It's really good news. Thank you, Gareth. Councillor Contell.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind adding to this one. Mr. David Potter and also Mr. Greer Meehan have reached out to me in the most recent week, and I've actually put a request through to officers to review this matter a little further. In fact, Mr. Potter raised a property in Autumn Street, Geelong West, which has an Anzac Norfolk pine that was planted in 1915, so about 106 years ago. So currently some development going on that site, but I believe the pine will be protected. But there is an interest to perhaps register that property with the Blue Plaque program. And there certainly seems to be a little bit more interest being shown around this initiative. So I look forward to working with Gareth and others on this and keeping the community informed, but most particular Mr. David Potter and Mr. Greer Meehan, who have reached out to me both separately, which both have been placed in the portal as well.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Contell. More evidence that if people ask questions, they do get answered and people take an interest and follow up. So thank you for that. Question 7 will be read out by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Vanessa Whitten, who has sent this question in. The 2015 COG Urban Forest Strategy indicates that it expands on the concept of a city in the park to enhance the public and private tree population in all of the suburbs and townships across Greater Geelong. It specifically recognises that private gardens are a part of Geelong's urban forest and the importance of the private realm and of all open space in Geelong in contributing to the urban forest. The strategy furthermore states that it will specifically bridge the gap between the existing council policy framework and the day-to-day work of the tree management team. The strategy indicates that it will be delivered by the City Parks and Gardens Department through the tree management team. However, during question time of the council meeting held on the 28th of September, the City Services representative responded to a question stating that the City Parks and Gardens Department is not responsible for the management of trees on private property. Of the three questions Vanessa has, the first one is, could you please indicate who is responsible for the management of trees on private property, which, according to the Urban Forest Strategy, form part of the private realm of Geelong's urban forest? So that is over to Guy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Harwood, and thank you, Vanessa, for your question. And also, I particularly appreciate your interest in the Urban Forest Strategy. As indicated previously, the relevant property owner are responsible for tree management in the private realm. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Question 2 is why was the street tree in front of 54 Barrable Road in Highton, a mature gum with extensive canopy cover, removed?
Again, thank you for your question, Vanessa. It was a mature yellow gum, as you've said, and unfortunately, following an inspection from our senior arborist, it was discovered that there was extensive decay in the main trunk, so the tree had to be removed for safety reasons. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you. And the follow-up question to that is, why has the street tree not been replaced as yet?
Yeah, it's been planned for. It will be replaced in the planting season early next year. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy. Question 8 will be read out by Councillor Contell. Thank you, Councillor Contell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This question comes from Angela Mangan. Angela has been very active in contributing and also in the consultation process with the Packington Street UDF. And so we thank her once again for asking some very intelligent questions. I'll read both questions out if that's okay with you, Madam Mayor, and then the relevant officers can answer them. Yep. So my question relates to the PACCO UDF. In relation to the commissioned traffic report, it is incredulous that 1% traffic growth per annum on PACCO since 2009 is considered a reasonable assumption to be used as a basis for any assessment and ultimately decisions being made, as it does not reflect the actual traffic growth that has occurred over this time frame. Question 1. Why has Council not provided more current traffic information to be used in the traffic analysis so that accurate assessment can be provided? In Melbourne, it was recently reported that, and I quote, a lot of crap buildings have been approved, and as a result, there has now been the introduction of revisions to the process to set higher standards and benchmarks relating to the quality and buildings being approved, including review by a panel of architects. Question 2 is, what are the exact processes and standards that Geelong Council have in place to ensure that any new developments are of architecturally high standard and fit within the character of the area that will be located in, that they will be located in?
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Over to you, Gareth.
Thank you, Councillor Contell, for reading those out, and thank you, Ms Mangan, for your continued involvement in the UDF. It certainly is appreciated, including these questions. So in regards to the traffic question, so the traffic growth factors are applied when data is not available for the current base year. In the case of the Transport Network Assessment, you referred to the 1% growth factor applied to the 2009 data year, up until including 2020, was based on actual traffic growth during this period attained from SCATS, which is the Sydney Coordinated Adaptive Traffic System. And this is traffic signal system, which is used by the Victorian Department of Transport throughout Victoria. That's actually essentially getting the data from those traffic signals that you actually analysed over that time. The data obtained from several intersections across the study area for the same time period demonstrated an annual traffic growth factor of 1%. So it suggests it's actually real live data that's being utilised out of those systems. And with regard to question 2 on the architectural design of future developments, so planning applications are subject to an internal review by several departments within the City of Greater Geelong, including our urban design and heritage team, which do have significant qualified urban designers within that group. There are many factors in reviewing applications, including the architectural quality and contextual appropriateness. But additionally, where the Minister for Planning may be the responsible authority for applications, which happens from time to time in Geelong, the application is typically referred to the Victorian Design Review Panel. The City is currently in a process of developing a design excellence program with the Office of the Victorian Government Architect, including the potential to establish a Geelong Design Review Panel to consider significant developments where the City is the responsible authority. And if that was progressing, the panel would include local experts in that field. Thank you again for both those questions.
Great. Thank you, Gareth. Question 9 will be read out by Councillor Aitken. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Asha. Look, it's my pleasure to read out Jean Nell's question, and it follows. Page 51 of the City of Greater Geelong Annual Report 2021 contains a progress report on effective environmental management. The increased suburban tree canopy criterion is described as needs improvement. The progress comments cite time taken for the current plants to mature, rapid urban growth and limited space on lots to retain and plant canopy trees on private land as impeding factors. The comments further state that we are working with the community and developers to address this. Jean has put forward 2 questions. I'll present the first question and seek a response from Gareth, the Director of City Planning and Economy. The first question is, can you confirm that the Greater Geelong City Council wrote to the Minister for Planning in March 2021 requesting the Minister to expedite a planning scheme amendment that removes the minimum garden requirement for property developments in the increased housing diversity areas, including the heightened increased housing diversity area?
Thank you, Councillor Aitken, and certainly thank you, Ms Nell, for the questions as well. Yes, on March 5, officers submitted an amendment C426 to make corrections to the residential zone Schedule 4 to exempt the minimum garden area requirement. This approach was consistent with Council's adoption of the same position at its ordinary council meeting the year prior on 24th of March 2020.
Thanks, Gareth. And there's a second follow-up question from Jean relating towards, if the request is granted, how will the amendment support the improvement of the suburban tree canopy in the heightened increased housing diversity area?
Thanks again, Councillor Aitken. And certainly, in short, the objective of the housing diversity area is certainly around residential housing versus rather than tree canopy. Now, and this was adopted though following Council's housing diversity strategy in 2007. And the sites identified in the IHDA are consistent with the state government policies for residential zone reform, which was introduced in 2013 and 14, which all councils around the state must abide by. The purpose of the IHDA is to provide the direction to accommodation residential growth in and around Geelong, where sites are located around identified activity centres, and that's a really important aspect. It is around these activity centres only. These areas provide opportunity for increased accommodation to help reduce urban sprawl and use existing infrastructure while promoting walkability in these areas and these communities. Site coverage in an IHDA area is permitted up to 70%, and planning application in these areas seek to balance between the built form and landscaping that is appropriate in the zone requirements. Thank you again for the question.
Thank you, Gareth. The 10th and final question will be read out by Councillor Contell. Thank you, Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This next question comes from Lewis de Cocker in regards to environmental management. It's a very well thought out and documented question. So please let me go through it. It's a little lengthy, but there's two parts to it, 2 questions. So I'll read the first one out first. The progress report on effective environmental management in the annual report lists protecting and restoring our natural environment as a focus area. but does not refer to the Greater Geelong Biodiversity Strategy. The strategy states that private lands in Greater Geelong include some of the rarest and most threatened flora and fauna populations within the region, resources which are often poorly represented on public lands. According to the strategy, it offers a unique opportunity to introduce a paradigm shift, including a coordinated and integrated approach to conservation and biodiversity from a whole of a municipality perspective, and aims to develop, promulgate and implement relevant laws, planning scheme amendments and approaches for the protection of threatened and rare biodiversity. Commendably, the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme contains statements and objectives addressing biodiversity. Example, the objective in clause 22.71-2 to protect and enhance biodiversity within the municipality. In a recent planning application, residents raised concerns and submitted a recording identified by a herpetologist as the warm-up calls of a growling grass frog, an endangered species, but the VCAT submissions by Planning Department did not raise biodiversity in the response to the permit application. Question 1 is, what can be done to ensure that the Planning Department's responses consistently reflect a whole of municipality perspective to protect Geelong's biodiversity on private lands?
Gareth, another one for you.
Thank you, Councillor Comtel. Look, it is noted that the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme policy for clause 22.71 is environmental sustainable development, and the policy basis is that the City of Greater Geelong is committed to creating an environmental sustainable city. This policy covers a range of matters from energy performance to transport to urban ecology, where biodiversity is mentioned in that policy objective. Not every objective, though, is relevant to every planning application. Whereas ESD is concerned, Council's planning departments seeks comments from Council's Sustainable Development Officer, and where biodiversity is concerned, we seek comments and are provided by the Council's Environmental Department.
Thank you, Gareth. In the lead up to question 2, Lewis de Cocker offers the following. The Geelong Biodiversity Strategy lists no further species loss as a target. It includes the following action in its strategic planning. Identify areas of primary biodiversity significance on private land and protect these areas through planning instruments, overlays, zoning, policy and other methods to protect those areas identified. Furthermore, Policy Statement 3.14 under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999 provides that any action that may have a significant impact on the habitat of the growling grass frog requires a referral to the Minister for approval before commencement of such action. Information was shared with the City of Greater Geelong about the possible presence of a growling grass frog in Highton. The growling grass frog is a rare and endangered species. The herpetologist listened to the frog calls recording in October 2020 at Frog Hollow and identified the warm-up calls of the growling grass frog. Following the report, question 2, has the City of Greater Geelong taken any steps to ensure that the necessary investigation under the EPBC Act Policy Statement 3.14 is triggered?
And then I think there's another question there's question 3.
Sorry, question 3, yes, I apologise. What steps has the council taken or does it plan on taking to ensure that the habitat of the GGF in Highton is protected?
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Contal. And again, Lewis, thank you for the question. It certainly is an important matter you raised regarding the protection of our flora and fauna, not only in our rural areas, but particularly in our urban areas as well. So while Council does not govern the EPBC Act, as this is a federal act, the Council and the City does ensure appropriate referrals are undertaken to relevant agencies or internally. The City has taken a number of steps to ensure the habitat of the growling grass frog in Highton is protected. And this has included improving stormwater quality, extensive habitat restoration in our reserves and waterways, and pest, plant and animal programs implemented by the City as well.
Thank you, Gareth. I will just add to that too that we had a 3-hour meeting yesterday with the Sustainability Advisory Committee, during which time we did spend an hour workshopping the biodiversity strategy and looking at some improvements. So it's a really good time to feed in comments about biodiversity to the Council, and you can send them to either myself as chair of that committee or to Councillor Maloney as the deputy chair, because we'd be very interested to take people's comments and suggestions for improvement. It's a very good time to do so. So thank you everybody for participating and reading those out, and thank you to Gareth and Guy for providing the responses. And once again, those responses will be provided in writing to each of the people who submitted a question. Now we're on to the petitions, and I believe there is a petition to be brought forward by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a petition here in paper form to table from the K-Rock team at 95.5 K-Rock, the drive home with Herbie and Josh. The petition is for Geelong to have their very own big attraction. It's called the Big Ute. The biggest ute you'll see on your commute petition has been signed by 703 people. And as we know, the 1934 Ford Ute was designed and built in Geelong by Mr. Band. This petition will be the catalyst for a notice of motion coming in November meeting from myself and Councillor Aitken. Stay tuned for the next step. K-Rock have been on this journey with this campaign and received some amazing support. So thank you to Herbie and Josh, and we look forward to working with them on the great idea going forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck, and thank you to the K-Rock team. That's a great idea, a bit of fun. That's terrific. Okay, on to section B, which is the reports. And the first item tonight is the City of Greater Geelong Annual Report 2020-2021, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report is asking Council to note the annual report and summary. This is required by the Local Government Act to have it considered again before Council in an open meeting. And this document has been on our website for some time. Briefly, though, the annual report provides a comprehensive account of the City's performance during the last financial year. It includes details of how Council has supported the community through the pandemic while continuing to provide the facilities and services that most are used to and are essential to health and wellbeing. This report summarises the community and business supports provided pandemic, which include waivers on a range of permit fees, special COVID-19 assistance grants, fast-tracking permit applications, and supporting the expansion and activation of outdoor dining, which I know everybody's enjoying right now, and many other things. These support activities have largely contributed to a $9.4 million operating deficit, and this is about $1.5 million higher than the figure that we told you in September. This is due to a change in classification from the disposal of property and infrastructure sales. It's not due to more spending during that time. It's not often we get to spruik the city's achievements, and I think now is a good time. The following is a range of volume of services delivered by COG staff or volunteers. We've provided 440 youth programs online during COVID. We've swept 5,000 kilometres of streets, processed over 27,000 tonnes of garden organics into compost out at Anarchy, delivered 46,000 meals to residents with the Meals on Wheels programs, and we welcomed over 200,000 visitors to the city managed leisure networks, including outdoor pools. Thanks to the city for their hard work during this year, and it was a true test of how we as the community can work together and how I'm sure we all look after each other. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I certainly commend the words of Councillor Grisbeck there. She's moved it all and summarised it all very, very well. As said, we're here to note it again after it's been submitted to the Minister for Local Government, as is in line with the Act. And the annual report is actually, I'll just reiterate, it is a fantastic document. Yeah, as Councillor Grisbeck said, not often do we get to spruik what's going on, but this is actually a good news story report. We're in times of hardship. We've been in them for a while now. And it shows how as council, we've adapted, we've been able to support our community, grow what we're putting out there, how we are supporting our community in so many ways, grow our services and our delivery, whilst only having a minor deficit really comparative to our entire budget. And I won't steal any wind out of Councillor Aiken's sails when the next item comes up, I'm sure, in regards to a long-term financial plan. But I'm wholly behind this document. It is a good news story. There's so many fantastic projects, things that go on in our community. It's hard to be across all of them. So just a flick through this document really educates you quite quickly about how much great stuff, how many things are to be positive about in the city of Greater Geelong. So happy to second this document.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Have we got any other comments on the annual report? Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, in years to come, this will actually become a significant historic reference document for the City of Greater Geelong. The reason being is because 2021 was the height of the COVID pandemic. And what this document will show that the response from this council group was to establish a budget and expenditure program of $16.9 million to support the community and businesses. It will also show that operationally, the 2,700 staff that we had employed during 2021 did a fantastic job during the COVID period. And I think it will become a benchmark in the future for how an organisation can respond to something significant like a pandemic. What we do know is this is going to be the first of many pandemics, sadly. But what we should have confidence with is that the council as an organisation has been able to maintain its services and its delivery of policy and strategic outcomes during the financial year. And importantly, we've done it in a reasonable manner without significantly impacting on our financial viability and sustainability as an organisation. Yes, COVID did mean we operated in a deficit. Yes, it did mean that we had to expend significantly more millions to support our community, but it also showed that the organisation was able to be nimble enough to respond to the significant challenges of COVID. So I congratulate everybody. This document is now an historic record of what we did achieve during 2021. And importantly, it does show that the organisation and our employees in particular did their utmost best with all the challenges that they encountered and did it within a very constrained financial impact. It could have been significantly worse for us and we could have had falling down of our services and our delivery of capital programs during the financial year. But this annual report shows that we actually responded very well. So congratulations to Martin and his team, and I hope it is expressed back to all the senior managers and every single employee of the City of Greater Geelong how proud we are as a council group of what they did achieve during the significant challenges of 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Very well articulated. I'll just follow on that note that the deficit was a very deliberate response. It was actually nothing short of an instruction from the state government to align with what the state was doing and also at federal level to provide support and stimulus for the economy and the community through the COVID pandemic. So it was a very measured but very deliberate response that we all elected to do. Looking at this annual report, I get rather excited. It's an absolute feast of transparency and performance data. And it really does show the huge range of services and programs delivered by the team. So congratulations to the team for the delivery of all of those programs and also to the team that put the annual report together. One of the other things that we talked about yesterday in our Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting was the sustainability report that will be being put together and will likely come out around February, which will show a lot of our data across the economic, social and environmental sphere as well. So that's another report to get excited about if you're a report tragic like myself. So congratulations to the team on this annual report. Any other comments on the annual report? We'll go back to Councillor Grisbeck to close. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and you've definitely stolen some of the things that I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat them. So that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Well done for team. Item 2 is the long-term financial plan 2021 to 31, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded. Do we have a seconder for this one? I can second it. If no one else will, I'm happy. Oh, Councillor Grisbeck, maybe you can second it. Thank you. Cheers. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much again, Mayor Asher. Look, it's my pleasure to bring a recommendation that we do adopt the long-term financial plan, which covers the financial years from 2021 to 2031. This is the first time that the council has actually been requested to develop a 10-year financial plan under Section 91 of the new Local Government Act. The organisation, it actually is a very significant document because it outlines our financial plan and service delivery plan for the next 10 years. It has previously come before council because it's been out for public consultation. I should express, sadly, we only actually received 2 responses to this significant document. And to me, that actually does mean we have to educate our community about the importance of this document and plan. And we probably do need to look at other ways at which to engage with our community over this significant plan. Now, we did have some tight time constraints, which is why we chose to use it and had to use a very quick engagement process. But I think there's a real lesson to be learnt because of the lack of feedback we have received. And in fact, the 2 pieces of feedback we received from the community, one was related to future zoning of land within the municipality about medium density housing, and the other was about investments that the council's making in indoor gyms and swimming infrastructure across the region. Neither of them actually requested a change of the current financial plan. So what's been adopted tonight is exactly the same as what was presented to the council group in September. And I now ask that we adopt that particular plan. Some of the highlights that were mentioned in September that don't change is the plan identifies at least $1.6 billion worth of capital investment over the next 10 years. And importantly, it delivers on the commitments to build the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub, and also delivers on the commitment to build the North Ballerine Aquatic Facility as well too in the longer term financial plan. And they are both projects that have been significantly driven by the council group as representatives of the community. The plan also tries to look at our social infrastructure plan and our sustainability framework and how we allocate our financial resources and services over the next 10 years. And they have been used as the base document for how we've actually allocate our servicing. Importantly, it also embraces some of Council's sustainability targets as well too, which people may say, how does a financial plan actually do that? Well, we do set aside our investment and our financial commitments so that we do meet our target to have zero landfill by 2030, 30 and 31. So it actually, if you look through the document, you will get an understanding about how we are making financial commitments to meet that zero landfill. And some of those things include like the rolling out of a food waste collection service, the recycling of glass, the planning construction of regional resource hubs, and the creation of new residential resource recovery centres over the next 10 years. So I was actually really surprised that our environmental focused individuals in the community didn't actually look at the document to actually see how we are financially responding to the challenges of climate emergency, because we are doing it through this particular financial plan. The plan also identifies the significant financial constraints which the council is operating in, and that is that rate capping and any other potential constraints on our ability to generate income to pay for new services means that the council group is going to have to actually reduce services if we wish to create new services. and they will have to start prioritising how we actually, what of those 132 services that we deliver in, what we get out of, what we continue to be in, and what we change. And without that, we will not have the financial sustainability that is required in the longer term financial document. So significant challenges for us, but this plan gives a blueprint of how we think we can navigate ourselves through the challenges that are confronting us over the next 10 years as a council group.
Perfectly timed, Councillor Aitken. Well done. It's very hard to follow on from that, but I'll see if Councillor Grisbeck wants to have a go.
Thank you. It is always hard to follow Councillor Aitken, and I agree with what he has put through. I think this is one of the great things that was changed in the Local Government Act is for councils to have this long-term plan from 2020 in terms of when the Local Government Act was changed, and this is one of the great things. So I think what the other good thing I like about this document is it does take into account our risk appetite statement around what's low risk, medium risk and high risk. And I think this is a real good document for transparency with the community. Maybe we can just work on with its revision in the next few years about how we engage the community on this to get more feedback. I think because it's the first time that we've done it, I think that's probably why people didn't really know what it was. But now, hopefully, we can spruik it for the next year or so. This document will be ever-changing going forward when we introduce things like asset management registers and things like that. So I think it's quite a fluid document that will go forward, but it gives the organisation a real view across the longer term so we can talk about how we invest and what we invest into the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Well said. Any other comments on this one? No, I'll just close a little bit by just saying I think it's a really great example of the maturing of the approach in the organisation, not only in terms of the renewed Local Government Act, but also the professionalism, which is one of our strategic pillars, and also looking at sustainability again across those triple bottom lines, because financial robustness is something that we're all very keen to ensure is part of the legacy that we leave as councillors. So I think this is a really good example. As Councillor Aitken said, a blueprint. So thank you. Councillor Aitken, would you like to close?
Thank you very much for the councillors that have spoken on this most significant strategic document. My only other comment is to actually thank Karen and Narelle in our finance team. They've actually done a significant amount of work to be able to create this blueprint. It's very hard to actually do forward estimates, at least over a 12-month period, let alone a 3-year period like we used to do. But to be able to do it over a 10-year period was a significant challenge for the team. But I'm really proud of the work that Karen and Narelle have done, because it actually shows we do have the skill set internally in the organisation to be able to develop these type of documents. So we should be very proud that we haven't had to actually go out and get those consultants and other resources to be brought in to be able to deliver this document. And that gives me great confidence that we will be able to respond to any significant challenges that are outside of the current financial plan and adopt changes, as Councillor Grisbeck has said, moving forward when they're brought to us, because we've got the right finance team to be able to do that. So thank you very much to Karen and Narelle.
Great, well said. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. On that note, I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 3 is the Barwon Heads Village Park Master Plan, the final one. This will be moved by Councillor Sullivan, and I will second this one. So thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before us, we have this report which recommends Council adopt the Barwon Heads Village Park Master Plan, which will guide funding for the park over the next decade. The plan aims to ensure the park is a more enjoyable space and place to visit, and that its character, Wadawurrung cultural heritage, open space and unique environment are protected. In April this year, Council endorsed the draft master plan for community engagement, and we had nearly 300 contributions through the Your Say survey, which is fantastic, social media posts and attendance at drop-in sessions. So we have plenty of engagement on this issue. It's very important to our local community. And more than 80% of the survey respondents supported the plan's vision and goals, or more than 70% backed the management zones and recommendations. Our project reference group was made up of the clubs at the park, the community users, really. So the Barwon Heads Association and the Wadawurrung Traditional Owner Aboriginal Corporation also reviewed the plan. In consultation with the traditional owners will continue during the implementation if this plan is adopted. The master plan includes a new bowls pavilion, which is funded by Council's $500,000 contribution and supported by matching funding from the Commonwealth Government and $200,000 by Victorian State Government, which we're very grateful for on all levels. The plan also proposes a bike discovery area, which is a fantastic addition, as well as greater protection of our Moona woodlands, which are extraordinarily precious, and a tennis pavilion revamp, which we got contributions from the state government. Now, an upgrade is proposed for the shared cricket, soccer and footy pavilion. A combination of dog on and off lead areas, as well as dog free areas are recommended. So we've got sort of all users and all abilities and all wants there. And a potential site has been identified for a sort of like lawn bowls area. I can't say the word, so I don't want to bug it up, but more facilities there. So feedback saw the preferred site for the proposed bike discovery area. They wanted it moved to the south of the playground. That was supported by local children and their parents. So that addition has been made there. And the park would be further protected from overdevelopment due to building design guidelines, which are very important. So that involves the protection of open space and a statement of significance being incorporated into the plan. Multi-use hall for the first Barwon Head Scout Group and 13th Beach Board Riders Club isn't proposed to go ahead due to lack of support from the Scouts. But a feasibility study to explore other options is recommended in here. So that is not the end of that story. As I said, there's been a lot of community consultation on this one, a lot of community input. There's a lot of people that are happy. There's still some concerns, but this seems to be a document which leads onwards. There's still more to do sort of after this, but I think this is a reasonable document. I very much think it is. Like, everybody has been taken into consideration. I'm happy to hear other opinions from my fellow councillors.
Lovely. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. In recognition that we were going to be putting this through tonight, I had a bit of a trip over to Barwon Heads this morning just to double check that everybody was happy with it, and the positive response was overwhelming. So it's been a really great piece of work. This park has got such a diverse range of activities and places and spaces. It's an absolutely beautiful spot. The community is obviously very protective of it, and I think it's a really good example of working collaboratively and making sure that everybody's had an opportunity to contribute and have their needs met. So I fully support this as well, knowing and feeling pretty comfortable that the community is behind this as well. So thank you to the team for working really closely and to everybody who participated in the consultation process. Have we got any other councillors wishing? I'm sure Councillor Mason would talk about this if he was not on leave, but he is, but I think no one else. So back to you, Councillor Sullivan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. To reiterate what you said, there's so many community users in this area that if everyone sort of come together and be quite happy about where we're at right now, just shows it's a fantastic effort of collaboration between the community, between officers. We're at a great stage right here, right now. We've got so many great upgrades going in this area and so many extra levels of protection for areas of significance which already exist. So very pleased with this and happy to put it to the vote.
Excellent. Okay, on that note, all those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Carried. Item 4 is the former South Geelong landfill landscape plan. This will be moved by Councillor Contell, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Mansfield. Thank you, Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The report is asking for Council to consider and adopt the former South Geelong landfill landscape plan. The landfill plan covers about 15 hectares of a 158 hectare site, which is located between the Geelong Racecourse and the Barwon River. Most would be familiar with this parcel of land. You can see it quite clearly from Barwon Terrace and Breakwater Road. And on many occasions around election time, there is always illegally placed council election candidate signs on this parcel of land. So those that are familiar with the area would now know it well. The draft landscape plan was endorsed by Council and went to public comment on the 22nd of June. The works that are proposed aim to reduce dust and minimise the visual impact for the nearby residents. As I said, you can see it quite clearly from those roads that I mentioned. So it's really cleaning up a bit of an eyesore, and you'll see in the map and the pictures that are in the report clearly show what the land currently looks like. The works are proposed over several years, working on to improve water, weed and dust management, and enhance biodiversity, and provide a more aesthetically attractive site. The works over a couple of years will be at about $20,000 per annum in the budgets of 21-22, which is the current financial year, and then 22 and 23. I'll leave it at that, Madam Mayor, and allow others to make comment on it as they see fit.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Over to Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Contell, for outlining this particular proposal. This is an issue that I've heard a bit about from local residents. I had a meeting down on near the site with affected residents in my first term council, and there was an agreement made at that time that the city would basically landscape the area, provide vegetation to reduce the amenity impact on local residents from the adjacent industrial activity that has been going on for quite some time. The amenity impacts include not just a visual amenity impact, but there's also a significant amount of dust that comes across, especially on hot, windy days where the concrete dries out, impacting on residents. So our officers have undertaken a number of different approaches to try and reduce that amenity impact. So the landscaping was one of those things that was agreed to. When they actually went to put vegetation on the embankment that is in that buffer zone between the industrial area and the residents, it was found that wasn't going to be a great, that the original plans weren't going to work in practice. The vegetation wasn't really going to grow, and so given the degree of the slope there, so these plans were, or this design was come up with to find something more suitable that would still provide some benefit to the amenity for the local residents, but that would actually work in practice. So this has gone out for, as well as it being developed in consultation with the community, it went out for formal community consultation. There wasn't a lot of feedback as far as I understand. I think only a couple of residents provided any feedback, but my hope and understanding would be that based on the conversations I've had with residents around this will be something that they will be happy with. I think they'll just be very happy to see something done about that dust and visual amenity impact. It won't completely remove the that amenity impact, but it'll go a long way to making it a more livable environment for the locals there.
Yep, good point. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Contell to close. Thank you, Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, the initial works which are being carried out in this financial year, which are rather cost effective, as our officer Guy Wilson-Brown has indicated, are the perimeter fencing, and then the mound works. Once they're completed, then the reseeding of the grass will be completed, and that's when we'll start to see the real transformation occurring. So, other than what Councillor Mansfield has just articulated, that's all there is.
Great. Hope someone's doing time-lapse photography. That would be really interesting to see that remediation in play. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 5 is the Arts and Culture Strategy, moved by Councillor Sullivan and seconded Councillor Contell. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So, as you said, what we have right now is a report that recommends that the Arts and Culture Strategy from 2021 to 2031 is adopted, and that the summary Arts and Culture Strategy Overview from 2021 to 25 is endorsed. Now, this strategy aims to strengthen and grow Greater Geelong's arts and culture scene by guiding decision-making, collaboration and investment, while supporting creative communities and promoting inclusivity. So the strategy builds on the city's work in recent years, such as implementing Council's $665,000 COVID-19 recovery program towards the arts, ongoing grants program, an arts industry commission initiative to support local artists, and Wathaurong and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander programs and projects as well. Now, extensive consultation was carried out with more than 1,700 people being questioned or being consulted on this strategy, including creatives, broader community, the Geelong COVID Arts Recovery Advisory Panel, councillors ourselves, and the Arts Industry Council Victoria, as well as through a Your Say survey, which we have online, workshops, focus groups, interviews. This has been such a broad and wide-ranging project. It's been outstanding. I really believe it's one of the top ones we've done. The report states that implementation of the strategy will play a pivotal role in the creative industry's COVID-19 recovery after being among the first and hardest hit by the pandemic, which we all know the arts were one of the most severely affected industries. So to be able to have this strategy now, to be able to launch off the back of that as we sort of enter this period of recovery and reopening is incredibly exciting. The work by the team behind this is absolutely fantastic, and I'm happy to move the motion.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Contell. You're on mute, Councillor Contell. There we go.
I got that. Sorry. Yes, look, fully supportive of Councillor Sullivan's view and summary of the report. And also would like to thank the officers for the work that they've put into this. One of the reasons that I'm so enthusiastic about the report is probably more so the action items that we're anticipating will come out of this. And as the community may or may not be aware, we now obviously have the creative communities and culture portfolio, but we also have the arts, live entertainment and hospitality portfolio, and they work in reasonably closely together. And what this strategy will allow for is to really take into account the traditional arts, but also the live entertainment and hospitality portions of it. Whilst they're not all specifically and directly noted in here, they have those ongoing impacts on either those industries or that area of our community. And so the establishment of a major annual live music program and live music precinct is something that is really close to the portfolio which I chair, and it's something that we've been talking about a lot. And we're also looking forward to engaging with that community to help us develop that. There's some work that's already been established and it's well on its way, but we're really looking forward to developing Geelong and creating Geelong into a live music and live entertainment hub as it was in the early 90s, particularly. And so that's something that this strategy will help with. And then obviously identifying opportunities to partner with non-arts venues. I think that's something that's really new, that's in here and innovative. And looking at ways of taking the arts, live music, live entertainment, not just into the CBD, but into the suburbs and into different venues that may not traditionally be visited for this type of entertainment and offering. And also then the development and business case for a future public art. That's something that we've been speaking about also in this council. And I'd really like us to be adventurous in this space and not only look at the land that we live on, but also the water that we have surrounding us, looking at the types of art that we potentially could have on the water and in Corio Bay. Whilst the Christmas tree may not be art, it does provide entertainment and enjoyment for the community. And that's the same type of enjoyment and engagement that can be obtained with large water art. And so I'm really looking forward to what the strategy might do for us in that space. And with that said, I'll leave it to my fellow councillors.
Beautifully timed, Councillor Contell, and a few things to think about there. Thank you. Any other councillors wish to comment on this one? Councillor Aitken.
I've actually got a different focus to the other councillors, and that this document is good because it talks about infrastructure and it actually talks about heritage as well too. And it actually gives me confidence that we will start trying to address the fact that we've got all these collections that represent our heritage, both our Indigenous heritage of over 60,000 years and our European heritage over the last 200 years. And those collections include what Council has under its ownership, which is essentially quite a significant amount of archives and heritage value pieces that aren't on display. An example of that is our naval and maritime collections. And I'm also pleased that we're recognising the importance and opportunity that we can do to invest potentially in infrastructure to address some of the non-council collections that are of significance to our community, such as the James Harrison original ice making machine that he invented that significantly changed world transportation with the invention of ice in the 1850s, and also the industrial harvester archives that exist, and more recently the Ford archives that exist that need a home, and importantly the motoring collection that exists as well too, that commemorates the heritage of Geelong. So I'm really pleased that this document gives some basis that we say heritage matters, and we do have to invest in infrastructure to actually deliver that heritage, protection of that heritage. But importantly, it actually talks about our heritage should be accessible to the community to actually view and engage in our heritage. And that includes significantly our Indigenous and First Nation heritage as well too. So I look forward to how this strategic document can throw through to actual action plans that start addressing that heritage is important, collections are important, and how we make those collections accessible to the community and educate the community in particular about our 60,000 year Indigenous heritage that we have in Geelong.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Other comments on the arts and cultural strategy? Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this is an exciting strategy, I think, and I just want to speak about the timing of it. I think the timing is just perfect. We've seen the industry, especially live music, hospitality, that we really were accustomed to and enjoyed, really stripped away and really suffered in the last 2 years. And, you know, we really see the light now, and things are slowly, well, probably quickly getting back to what they were in some areas. And here we have this strategy by the council really explaining council's position on this for the next few years to come. And I think the report in it speaks about the council's position on a number of things. The council is an enabler, a leader, a host, a customer, a funder, an advocate, and a partner in what it can be in many events coming forward. And they speak about a mission statement, and this is a mission statement in this strategy that I think you could be excited about. And it's to bring our unique arts, culture and heritage into the life of every resident and the experience of every visitor, to care for our cultural assets and creative community, building the city's cultural, social, economic and environmental fabric through cultural investment. I think it says it all. I think if you're excited about any type of culture, any type of music, what can be provided by this city and around this city in the next few years, you must be excited about that. So I think this is a real springboard that's needed, it's required, and implementing this strategy will play a pivotal role in the creative industry's recovery after being among the first and the hardest hit by the pandemic. So there's some great work in this, and as Councillor Contel has spoken about, what we're really excited about is the annual live music program, and we're looking forward to a music festival in perhaps the months of April, May of next year in and around all parts of Geelong. So it's a good time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Very inspiring things to look forward to. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And I guess I just, rather than repeating what the others have said, I do think this is a fantastic strategy. One of the things that stood out for me was the emphasis on helping to foster collaboration between artists and between different types of art, as well as more opportunities for incubation of new talent. I think that was one that's been a bit of a gap in Geelong. It's interesting in other sectors where we're sort of known for the great collaboration that we do, and I think it's partly a result of the unique sort of circumstances that Geelong finds itself in, where we're sort of big enough to have some big players, but small enough that a lot of those players have opportunities to cross-pollinate. And it was, I think this strategy's really identified the opportunity for the city, or the role that the city can play in helping to support that collaboration, cross-pollination, and really, that really lies at the heart of a lot of thriving creative places. So I think while, that a lot of that will take some time to develop, this strategy really highlights that issue and identifies that gap and the important role that council can play. So that for me was something that I thought was really positive to come out of this one.
Great, thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Anyone else on this one? No? We'll go back to Councillor Sullivan to close. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors for all the words of encouragement and support of this document. We have a plan of where we want to be, and we have initiatives on how we are going to get there, which is incredibly exciting. As everyone said, now is the time to launch. Now is the time for us to really become renowned once more as a thriving arts culture. Music, performance, all your painted art, sculpture. There's just so much that the Geelong community, the wider greater Geelong community, has to offer in this area. And we're famous as an events region. We're famous as an arts region. And with so much going on, so many fantastic projects popping up, I said there's no better time than ever. So thank you for all the kind words, and happy to move the recommendation.
Excellent. Okay, we'll put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Moving on to item 6, the Geelong thematic history, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. And speaking after the last agenda item, this is perfectly timed for this report, I think. This item recommends that we note the completion of the About Corio, the thematic history of Greater Geelong. And the thematic history was a key action out of the Municipal Heritage Strategy, which was just adopted before the re-election of councillors back in 2017. It outlines the key historic themes along with photographs, maps and plans. It was researched and authored by Dr. David Rowe of Authentic Heritage Services, with the assistance in research from Pam Jennings. The thematic history is based on an extensive research and consultation with the traditional owners, the community and other organisations and individuals. This report will be referred to the Heritage Advisory Committee for ideas on promotion of the work and how the information in this document can be utilised by the city. This document is very large. It's some 1,500 pages, which is why you would see that it's not attached to the agenda tonight. It is available online, and each section can be downloaded in smaller proportions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Okay, Councillor Murray. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, as Councillor Grisbeck has said, the thematic history of Greater Geelong, this is simply a brilliant, very important landmark study. It lays the foundation and absolutely everything about Geelong, where it came from and until now. 600,000 words, 1,500 pages, and the detailed, to be very complete history of Geelong. And I don't think it actually started out that way, but that's where it's finished. So to Dr. David Rowe, outstanding work. Congratulations on this. And of course, your assistant, Pam Jennings. There will be 2 printed versions at the Heritage Centre at the library for those who wish to to attend there and have a read. And I imagine if you want to read the whole lot, you might have to stay for about a month, because that's how it is. But it's themed, as Councillor Grisbeck has said. You can put in a search of a name and or a theme, and it will bring that up, the history of all that. So I don't think there would ever have been a greater piece of work done by Dr. David Rowe. This will be his legacy. Absolutely brilliant work. Congratulations.
Well said, Councillor Murray. But any other councillors wishing to comment on this one? Good summer reading, perhaps. Okay, back to Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One particular point that I wanted to point out was the history usually has been traditionally documented by Anglo men and women whose colonial patriarchal views are rarely represented or offer different perspectives to their own. So this thematic history has attempted to address the often overlooked histories of First Nations peoples and the contributions of women and immigrants, including in the contributions made by later non-British arrivals to Greater Geelong. So thank you so much to the team in the Planning Department for their close work with Dr. Rowe on this project. And I think this, as Councillor Murray here said, this document will go down in history as one of the most detailed histories of Geelong. And it'll be a document that we will often refer to, I think, here at the city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Very well said. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7 is the Gambling Harm Minimisation Council Policy Draft, and I believe we're having somebody excuse themselves from this one. Councillor Harwood.
Madam Mayor, I'll be excused from items 7, 8 and 9, just to have they're formed in the agenda tonight, so I'll be back on for item 10.
Lovely. We'll zoom you back in for 10. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Okay, so item 7 will be moved by Councillor Mansfield and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. So this item is regarding a new gambling harm minimisation policy to basically replace our existing policy, which really focuses on our statutory obligations regarding electronic gaming machines. So this motion is to put our draft policy out for community consultation. And I'd really, as always, but particularly with this item, urge those with an interest to provide some feedback. This is something we've had many debates in the chamber about, particularly around pokies, whenever we've had that obligation arise to provide a response to the gaming regulator about an application for more pokies from a venue. And every time we've debated it, there have been calls from councillors and from the broader community that we need to widen the scope of our gambling policy and look beyond just the bare minimum statutory obligation. So that's what this policy is attempting to do. It's been the subject of much discussion amongst the councillor group to try and reach something that was felt to be that would be acceptable to the community. And while I don't think it would surprise many that personally I would have preferred a much stronger policy, I think this is a start, and I really thank the officers for the work that they've put into trying to address all the councillors' feedback, given the very divergent views on this subject. So this policy will hopefully allow us to gather more data to get a better picture of how gambling is embedded in the community, particularly the many sports clubs who benefit from profits of gambling or gambling sponsorship, and the degree to which they need to rely on this funding. From some of the discussions we've had as a council group, it's come to light that there's probably quite an extensive reliance on this in Geelong community sports. And while the policy doesn't compel any changes to be made by clubs, it does provide an opportunity to start some conversations with sporting clubs or other community groups and venues about how they can potentially move away from gambling as a revenue source and to better understand the role that council can play in supporting them to do this. We know already that a lot of sporting clubs have been proactive in doing this. The Geelong Cats got rid of their pokies and more recently moved away from sports betting advertising, and we're seeing some more community clubs doing the same. The Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation's Love the Game campaign is aiming to really support clubs to do that. So we'll work with that organisation and those programs to help clubs if this policy is implemented. It is somewhat ironic, I think, that a lot of sport depends on financial support from something that's derived from potentially unhealthy pursuits like alcohol, fast food, gambling. In the past, it was tobacco. So this is really, I think, an opportunity to promote, to send some healthier signals to community members if we can support clubs to do this. This policy also looks broadly at how we can educate the community about potential harm from gambling, and it includes some leadership and advocacy activities such as advocating to the state government to reduce our pokies cap, something we've long called for as a council, and a commitment to not hold council events or meetings at venues with pokies. And it also continues our existing practice of deprioritising grant applications from clubs that have EGM revenue. Doesn't exclude them, but it just puts them down in the rankings. So I might open it up there to other councillors to have a say on this one. But as I said, really important that we hear from the community about this one, in particular those that might have an interest in it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Over to Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Mansfield. I think it's a particularly poignant time to talk about this gambling in general. It's a weird time to be re-emerging back into society and having a bunch of people roll up to racing and talking about this is a really great way to start those conversations about how to minimise harm. I mean, we don't tend to realise the tendrils of harm that can permeate our community, which might mean financial strain, crime, all kinds of fallout from things that we possibly think might be a harmless flutter. So it would be wonderful to hear from our community as to what should be in and out of this policy, what your thoughts are on it, especially with respect to sporting clubs. They are, very well integrated into what we do as a council. So it's really important that we get the community voice and informing as part of that deliberative engagement that is really the backbone of the updated local government laws. So enact. So really encourage everyone, and I'm going to be promoting this on every social platform that I have to get people engaged with this as much as they are with the dog parks and other things that they respond to quite heavily. It'd be really great to hear your views on this. So looking forward to hearing the responses about this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, and I'm pleased to be able to talk on this particular draft policy. This policy has had, as Councillor Mansfield and Maloney have said, this has had many meetings and debates throughout the year or so that we've been trying to get it right. I'm confident that this is broader than just electronic gaming machines. And if we're going to talk to the community about electronic gaming machines, then my view was we needed to talk about the broader gambling that affects our community, like online betting and those types of things. I want to hear from a broad range of community, especially those in the sporting fields, the clubs, and how it will affect them. I'm on the fence as to this policy, so I'll be really listening to the community as part of the engagement. And I think before we endorse this policy, I think we really need to hear from a wide range. And as Councillor Maloney said, I will be sharing this particularly through my networks as well. It can be quite a differing views across council, but it also reflects the differing views across the community. So I'd like to thank Janice from our community services team for her hard work on this one. I think it's been quite difficult to sort of get a view of how we should go forward, but I think she's done a stellar job on that. So let's hear from the community and let's hear what you think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Other councillors wishing to comment on this one? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Like many of the other councillors, particularly Councillor Kylie Grisbeck, I'm interested in what the community's view will be on this policy, because this time it's not just about pokies. This is talking about all forms of gambling, whether it be horse racing, whether it be the dogs, whether it be pokies, whether it be online gambling. The community can form a view and provide us the feedback. And the community is broad and wide. It's the man and woman on the street, but it's also families, it's also sporting organisations, it's also business owners, retailers, all of those that generate revenues from, legally generate revenues from these pastimes. So I think it's really important that as councillors we engage with that, as many of the community as we possibly can, the broad community, to get all sides of the story and all views, because it's very, very important, because it will have an impact one way or another on the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other councillors wish to speak on this one? Councillor Murray.
Yeah, look, my view is pretty much what other councillors have spoken about. The number of discussions we've had as a councillor group on this is very interesting, and I think the initial conversation started about where's the council's view on increasing the EDMs, the pokies, and here we are now talking about all sorts of gambling. I too really encourage the community to have their say on this. And I think especially in Geelong, where it's probably unfortunate, but a lot of the sporting community clubs are reliant on Buckley's and obviously poker machines from Buckley's, and have been for a number of years. And in fact, there was a local president, I think the president from Anarchy came out last week and said if they didn't receive that $10,000 from Buckley's, they probably wouldn't be here, or they'd really struggle to survive next season. And they're not alone. So there is that real reliance. So it's a very, very tricky here in Geelong when you're talking about the reliance of sporting clubs on gambling. So so I too really encourage everybody that can to get involved and have their say on this, because it's not black and white. We don't live in a perfect world. But we're doing our best to see, what we can do with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors? Councillor Aitken.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, this actually is a significant potential policy shift for the council, and that's been articulated by the other councillors. But I think it is important to acknowledge that it actually is reflecting community sentiment about gambling. We now know, horse racing causes significant gambling problems. We now know that greyhound racing causes significant gambling problems. We now know that the trots cause significant gambling problems. At the present time, our policy is just focused on electronic gaming machines, which everyone colloquially knows as pokies. And in fact, when you communicate with a parent that has a child between the ages of 16 and 21, the most challenging issue that they are presenting to us is that online gambling is actually a significant issue especially for young males. And I think that's where we're trying to respond to that as a collective group. But I think it is important that the community actually gives us some advice before we adopt a significant policy shift on this issue. Coming from the northern suburbs of Geelong, I do see that on a daily basis the impacts of what gambling addiction does do to a number of members of my community. And it is appropriate that we have some framework at which we try to protect people from what gambling does when you can't control your involvement in gambling. But I welcome the opportunity that this policy does deserve significant community feedback. I mean, the policy is going to mean that we won't be able to go to the Lara Sports Club, the Geelong Greyhound facility, or the Leopold Sports Club to have our future council meetings. It means we won't be able to sponsor the Geelong Racing Club. It means we won't be able to hold any events out at the Geelong Racing Club. And it will mean that possibly any organisations that we fund that actually use gaming venues as well too will be given lower priority in their assessments. So it has a significant impact for the community and organisations that are actually and business models that are designed around gambling. And so I encourage everybody that actually has a view to try to present it before we make a final decision on it, and hope that we do make the right decision, which can reflect the community sentiment that now exists on this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments before I go back to Councillor Mansfield to close? Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I think you'll be able to see from the discussion that we've had tonight that there are different feelings about it, but overall, the united message is we do want to hear from the community about this. We want to get this right. In terms of it's a policy proposal that, as I said earlier, doesn't really compel any organisations to change what they do, but offers support if they would like to. And it's really about starting those discussions around, alternative funding models. And a lot of councils are starting to do some work around this to try and look at how we can support the community to help promote or how to minimise harm from gambling in our community. And I guess it's just helpful to sometimes reflect on some of the stats. I know we hear about them a bit of the time, but just about every one of us would know at least one person who's experienced problem gambling at some point in their lives. We know that 2.44% of the Geelong population experience problem gambling, and 2 to 3 times that number are moderate risks of problem gambling. 1 in 5 people are using online gaming. It's been talked about. That's an increasing risk group. And the amount of money being lost in our municipality is mind-boggling. Every year, it's around half our entire council budget. So on pokies, despite venues only being open for 259 days last year because of COVID, residents lost $88.1 million. It's over $344,000 a day. And that was higher per day than in the previous 2019-20. Each year it's been going up. And 60% of this spending is thought to be from problem gamblers. And then a further $129 million was lost on non-pokies gambling like sports. Just to finish, there's often a justification that the proceeds from gambling go back into the community. We've heard a bit about that, but we know that in Geelong, the 2018-19 stats show that only 1.8%, so about 2 million of that huge amount of losses went back in to provide any real community benefit. So it's a significant issue. There are health risks involved with it, and I really look forward to hearing from the community about this policy and what we can do to support better health and wellbeing for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 8 is the G21 and AFL Barwon Towards 2030 strategy, to be moved by Councillor Murray and seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report asks Council to note the final G21 and AFL Barwon Towards 2030 strategy. AFL Barwon, in partnership with the G21 region local government authorities, commissioned the development of the strategy. It is an update to the current 2015 strategy and identifies the future directions of AFL and netball and the investment priorities for the sport across the region over the next 10 years. Now, the report says that the growth of AFL football and netball across Greater Geelong has increased by 38% over the past 5 years, including a growth of 424% in women's football. A range of regional and local issues specific to Greater Geelong are considered, including a focus on ensuring player and umpire change rooms are gender neutral, accessible and universal in their design by 2030. Development of partnership with schools to advocate for access to facilities and consider collaborative investment, and facilitating the delivery of sports lighting to help meet demand for playing fields and courts, and continuing to provide more sporting fields and netball courts. The strategy seeks to develop a plan which drives participation and enhances the experience of all participants, while identifying the priorities for investment and related infrastructure. So I might pause there, Madam Mayor, and if others wish to comment.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I'll hand over to Deputy Mayor Sullivan to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Councillor Murray has definitely moved this item well. This strategy has been on public exhibition for a period of 6 weeks during May to July this year, and as a result of the community feedback, a number of small changes were made to the final document. This includes data relating to all abilities, netball, empowering facilities, and partnership opportunities between football and netball, but the details of all the changes are certainly in the document. The final strategy highlights a range of issues that AFL Barwon and G21 local government authorities face, particularly relating to growth and participation. The strategy seeks to develop a plan which drives participation and enhances the experience of all participants, while identifying the priorities for investment and related infrastructure. This is a wide document which takes in so many members of our community. So many people use their local football and netball facilities. We are part of regional Victoria, and football, these Saturday sports are really gathering hubs of the centre of so many of our communities and our townships. The document like this presents certain direction for these areas and really guidelines, where a lot of money for investment will be. So this affects many people, from our young participants to our older athletes. Everybody is welcomed in sporting participation, especially the clubs, the volunteers, and all the above. So it's a fantastic document, and I'm glad to be seconding it behind Councillor Murray.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Aitken.
Thanks, Mayor Asher. Yeah, look, this is actually really just a refresh of a document that was actually created about 6 or 7 years ago. And what drove the refresh was essentially that lighting was now seen as a piece of infrastructure that we needed to rank. And the issue about the explosion of female participation, not just in AFL, but also netball as well too. And what the beauty of the original document and this document is it actually assists us as councillors to respond to the priority of investment. We've got a limited amount of capital that we can invest in community facilities, and this AFL Barwon were the pioneer of this document to actually assist the government, and in this case the local governments in the region, to prioritise their project allocations. And this refresh is a great opportunity for us as the council group to have a look at who has got enough and who hasn't got enough, and where we can prioritise our limited resources. The real challenge from this document is this is actually what the other sports need to be doing in the Geelong region as well too. In particular, the soccer community, the basketball community. They need to actually have a document that ranks existing facilities, and it gives us the capacity to be able to respond to the priority needs. At the present time, what happens is councillors on probably a monthly basis receive requests for funding to upgrade community-based facilities, and we genuinely are in no capacity to be able to respond to those individual requests, because we need a document such as this, which has been created by AFL Barwon, to give us a clear prioritisation about where to focus our limited funds and money that we have. And so I encourage other sports to actually have a look at this revamped and updated infrastructure list, and actually develop one for their own sport, or their own community activity, so they can compete against AFL Barwon and the investments that council, in particular Geelong's, making in new netball courts and upgraded AFL change rooms and other facilities to make them female friendly.
Great, thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Murray to close. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you for those councillors that have spoken. I just want to just enforce what Councillor Aitken has said there about the AFL Barwon, the rating system. and it really does assist council when looking, especially around budget time, where they rate the grounds and they rate the infrastructure. So it certainly assists there. I just want to comment perhaps about what's not in this document, and it's probably we had the arts and cultural strategy earlier, and I said it's probably perfect timing for that. I'm not sure about the timing for this, and it's that's just a bit unfortunate, but it's probably about the facts and the figures that aren't in this that have probably occurred around local community sporting clubs in the last 12, 18 months because of this COVID. And a lot of these facts and the figures that presented it here happened pre-COVID. So COVID has had a huge impact on a lot of these sporting clubs, as I say, the last 12, 18 months. So there certainly is the challenge going forward because it can never be underestimated what role these sporting clubs have. But as we've seen in the press in the last couple of days, they've appointed the new regional general manager. And I think Councillor Bruce Harwood is a great appointment, and he knows the landscape. There wouldn't be anyone better. So he's got challenges, and I'm sure he will do a great job of it. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Murray. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now I'm just going to call an adjournment for 2 minutes because we have a computer restart required on the live stream computer. So please just bear with us, and just we'll be back in 2 minutes. The screen will go blank and then we will return. So thank you for your patience.
Hold on.
Thank you for your patience. I think we now have the computer back up again, so that's good news. Straight on to item 9, which is the Sport and Recreation Grant Programs 2021 to 22, and this will be moved by Councillor Murray and seconded by Councillor Contell. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council is recommended to apply for the Newcombe District Cricket Club and Anarchy Football Netball Club to receive grants from Sport and Recreation Victoria. The Victorian Government recently opened the annual community cricket program and round 2 of the country football netball program. The city has assessed known projects against funding criteria, consulted with the SRV, Netball Victoria, Cricket Victoria and the Geelong Cricket Association and the clubs previously mentioned. The priority project proposed for funding under the community cricket program is for new cricket nets and a practice facility at Newcombe District Cricket Club at Grinta Reserve. The total project cost is $400,000, and if the grant application is successful, a $300,000 council contribution would be required. I might leave that there, and Councillor Contell could perhaps finish that off. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Contell.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Murray. And Madam Mayor, yes, I'm really quite excited to talk about this report tonight. I know that there's lots of deserving clubs, but there's no doubt that right here, right now, these 2 clubs are the most deserving of us trying to support them with their facilities. Councillor Sullivan and I have been working with the Newcombe District Cricket Club for some time. I've been engaging with them. In fact, I was looking at my notes today, and we went and saw them on the 3rd of October last year, and we met with them again on the 5th of December about this exact item. Their practice wickets are really appalling, in fact. And we did put a submission into the budget for them to be considered to be upgraded. And when we met with the committee members back then, and I see that we met with Sean Wooten, Andrew Webb and Chopsy Nay at the time, and they showed us through. It was clear to see that they needed to be upgraded when you compare them to a lot of the other facilities that are in Geelong at the moment. So those guys will be, and the committee will be really thrilled, as I know that Anarchy will be as well. So let's hope that we can get these 2 projects over the line, and then commit as a council to contribute the remainder that's required to bring these facilities up to a standard that's required and should be expected.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This is a fantastic project. I echo the words of both Councillor Murray and Councillor Contell. Councillor Contell and I have certainly been working with the Newcombe District Cricket Club. They're so deserving this, as are Anarchy. I know the Windermere Ward Councils have been working very closely with them. But personally, my experience with Newcombe, they were in dire needs of upgrades. This is fantastic that we can make some commitment, not only of ourselves, but to get some further funding from the state government. We have a rotating list. Unfortunately, there's some clubs are always going to be worse off than others, and then we sort of get the funding go to the top and the cycle repeats. However, this club is desperately in need of it. They're sort of an interesting position where they're right on the boundary between wards, both at a council level and electorally at a state level. So it's fantastic we can get some funding for them. Fun fact, their current seating space, the only covered seating space they have for the cricket club in the training area are old bus stops from Mallop Street, which was taken out a long, long time ago. So that's the sort of only cover that they have there. And the cricket pitch, they're barely wickets. It's dangerous as well because these warm-up areas, these wicket lanes, are right next to the netball facilities. So we're having, training balls coming out, getting whacked over. They're just going overhead onto a training netball court where you have, youth and, senior members playing. So this is something that desperately needs attention from council. It was fantastic that we can find money in the budget, and if state government can also find the money as well, all the merrier. This place truly deserves it. This area, this entire reserve hasn't seen a real injection of funding for quite a long time in the cricket department. We're lucky to get some funding for the footy department the last couple of years. But now it's the cricket club's turn, and it's fantastic to see this going through the chamber. Very much in support of it.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. That's great detail. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is a real example about where the AFL Barwon strategy that we adopted just recently really comes into its own. This is, for example, the funding that we're hoping the state government will support us on in terms of the country football netball program is around making another compliant court out at Anarchy Football. The total cost of that is $250,000, with council hope, if successful, council will contribute $100,000. And this is, as I said, an example of where we can see the Anarchy, see the AFL Barwon strategy working. This only has one netball court out there, and they've got many teams from seniors to juniors. So I'm really pleased if this was able to get up through the state government. It shows that we're investing in the right area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Your sound is lagging every now and then, so if you are speaking on the next item, which I know you are, you might want to turn your screen off while you're speaking just to get your broadband. Councillor Aiken, thank you.
Thank you very much. Look, it was lovely to hear about the councillors' engagement with Newcombe and being able to put forward this project. And in fact, Kylie and I met with Heath Menahet on Saturday to actually get an update about how the Anarchy Football Club is going. And look, Heath's actually now been the president since 2013 out at Anarchy, and he is extremely proud of this council group. In fact, we are really taking and very lucky to be able to take the credit for what this council group's doing, Kylie and I. But essentially, we're following the AFL Barwon infrastructure ranking report. What we do know is that Anarchy currently has one netball court, and what this project will do will give that community 2 netball courts. Council had one of its meetings out at Anarchy, which we all got to see the old pavilion and seeing how it was past the stage of having a lick of paint put on it. It actually did need to be brought up to the standards of our other facilities. We are starting in July next year the new pavilion for Anarchy. And of course, approximately about 2.5 years ago, we opened the new change rooms. And in fact, the Anarchy change rooms were known as the worst change rooms in the whole of Region 4 football. and in fact, it was quite regular to find sheep in them. And the investment that this council has actually put into Anakie has been nothing but outstanding. And I thank my council colleagues for actually supporting that. The asset out at Anakie, and Heath reminded us again on Saturday, it's not just a football netball club. It actually is the heart of the whole community out at Anakie. And these investments will mean that the long-term sustainability of the Anakie Football and Netball Club will mean it will be around for another 50 to 60 years because of this investment in additional netball facilities, the new change rooms, and ultimately the new pavilion, which will become a significant community facility for Anakie and the Anakie community. So thank you for caring about rural Geelong. We don't get much of a chance to talk about rural Geelong in this council because it's dominated by urbanised and CBD issues. But tonight we're actually endorsing to ask the state government to put in funding towards Anakie, and I hope they do support this very worthwhile and valuable project for the Anakie Football and Netball Club.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Again, nicely timed. Any other councillors wishing to contribute to this one? We'll go back to Councillor Murray to close. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for those other councillors who commented on this. We can't have too many netball courts, and another compliant netball court in the Greater Geelong is a positive. So hopefully a good result for the Ballerine and Windermere Awards here. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Murray. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, we will welcome Councillor Harwood back. If somebody could contact Councillor Harwood and he can rejoin. And we will move into item 10. Here we go. Welcome back, Councillor Harwood. Item 10, adoption of the street lighting policy, to an amendment, I believe, to be raised and moved by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Can we have someone to second that amendment? I think Councillor Aitken would likely to hear it. Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck, let's go with your amendment.
Thank you. I'm just making sure you can hear me okay, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
Beautiful. Okay. I know that I get very excited about large, high-profile things in council, but this is an example of where I'm really passionate about getting the policy direction right. This street lighting policy amendment, the amendment that I want to move today has been out to consultation in July, and we received 12 submissions from it. The amendment that I would like to make is to add an extra item to number 3, which will mean that I'll read it out to you, to instruct the Chief Executive Officer to amend the street lighting policy and the supporting engineering design note 15 to change the definition of precinct from greater than 1,000 residential lots to greater than 100 residential lots. The city manages an estimated 24,000 or over 24,000 streetlights and includes nearly 2,000 decorative streetlights. The policy sets the direction for new and replacement street lighting, which is contemporary, innovative and energy efficient. It would replace the existing policy adopted in 2008, which lacked the scope to prevent the installation of the non-standard decorative lighting in new land developments. The city's officers have incorporated all of the feedback, but after speaking with many people that this policy would touch, I feel we need to make this amendment. This amendment will change the lots from 1,000 to 100. This means that developments less than 100 would not necessarily get access to the decorative lighting. There are many developers, big and small, that would love to set their estates aside with this policy, and I believe we should provide fair and equitable access to smaller developers as well. So not all the developers have over 1,000 lots. So officers have been very clear with their explanatory note for the engineering design. This shows that they're listening to making policies and procedures available in plain English, and I would encourage my fellow councillors to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck, for actually bringing the amendment to us. What councillors probably aren't aware, the existing policy that was adopted in 2008 has caused some conflict with our residential developers, and they have rightly pointed out that the council has a vision to be clever and creative, but we were actually enforcing a policy that actually restricted clever and creative decorative street lighting opportunities. And so in other words, we were looking at homogenous responses to street lighting. And as a consequence, we weren't reflecting the diversity that the community is actually asking for in the areas in which they live. What is good is this policy tries to respond to some of that need for clever and creative decorative residential lighting. And yes, it does come at a cost for the council ongoing. Decorative lighting in residential areas can have higher costs than the bare minimum baseline lighting systems that council wishes to be introduced. But what is important is that if that's actually what the developers and the community is requesting, that's actually what we should be delivering. We should be delivering a diversity in our residential areas, and we should be responding to the needs of the community. And I think the policy gives a balance in that, and I congratulate the team for trying to embrace what is being requested of us. And I thank Councillor Gresbeck as well too, to recognise that lot developments over 1,000 would benefit from this policy as it was originally positioned by the officers, but lot developments under 1,000 wouldn't. And what we do know is that statistically, there have been most development that's been occurring in Geelong thus far has been under 1,000 lot developments. So as a consequence, we needed to shift the figure to be able to implement the clever and creative lighting infrastructure that we would like to see throughout the whole of the Geelong region.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments on this particular amendment? I think it makes sense. I think it's been well articulated by Councillor Grisbeck. Do we have any other comments? Go back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to also thank the many, many developers that I've had conversations with and community members about this. I'd also like to thank the officers who I've been talking about street lighting with since I was started at council back in 2017. So I'm really pleased that we've finally been able to put this policy on the table. So thank you very much to everybody for this policy. And I know that it doesn't necessarily excite some, but it definitely excites me. Thank you.
Well, lighting is important. Okay, thank you. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? The amendment's carried. Thank you. Okay, we have item 11, which is Burnham Court, Belmont, a declaration street construction special charge scheme 365. Now, there is a revised recommendation for this one. So I'll just read the revised recommendation out, and it does relate to item 1.11.2.3. We have...
Mayor Asher, are we going to adopt the policy or merely the amendment? Do we need to hear the policy as well? Just clarifying.
I think we read the recommendation first, do we not? Just to see what we're actually talking about. Is that the appropriate way? I might just check with Sarah McHugh.
Thanks, Mayor Asher. Yes, Council has just carried the amendment, so now we need to consider the full resolution.
For the
previous item.
For the previous item. Okay, so we need to go back. My apologies. So now go back and we move the original with the recommendation.
So the amendment has been adopted or carried by council, and then it becomes part of the substantive motion. So now we hear the full motion.
Okay, and again, we'll hear that, and that will be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Okay, thank you. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you. We've discussed it. I'm happy with the amendment. I thought that was the substantive motion, but let's go through
I thought we moved it became the substantive motion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maloney, anything to add?
Oh, just the importance of good lighting. I think we're all rocking it tonight. And I also found that you learn something new every day. $3,500 it costs to replace lighting. So I think it's really important, given our new LED lights and the fact that we're zhuzhing up the city. It's really great to see this kind of policy that helps us to do something quite sensitive to the environment, like minimising lights where the natural environment is impacted by lighting. But that's all I have to add. And yeah, excited about the policy. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on the full motion? Back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right. Now we'll move on to item 11, which is Burnham Court, Belmont, the declaration of the Street Construction Special Charge Scheme 365. Now we do have a revised recommendation, and I will just double check again with Sarah McHugh that I do read this out first so that we know, because we don't have visibility of it on screen. Is that what is required?
Yes, please, Steph.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so it does relate to section 1.11.2.3, where we have, in accordance with section 172 of the Local Government Act 1989, the interest rate payable on the special charge, which has not been paid by the specific date, is, and this is the revision, set at Council's overdraft rate, reviewed every 3 months, provided that it shall not exceed the rate fixed by the Governor and Council by order for the purposes of section 172 in brackets 2A, in which case the rate of interest shall be the maximum rate fixed by the Governor and Council by order for the purposes of this section. And an extra section has been added, 1.11.2.4, in accordance with an individual hardship payment schedule agreed by the City. So that is the recommendation that we will be talking to. So this item will be to be moved by Councillor Harwood, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. We got there.
We did.
Yeah, Burnham Court, a small court off Eaton Road up in Belmont. It's about 6 properties are affected by this particular court, which has been a gravel dirt court for, well, since it was formed many decades ago. And the residents have requested that the road be bitumenised. There's a special rate and charge that applies. Of the 6 residents, 4 are in favour, so we have decided to go ahead with the works in the court, and they will commence as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. We have Councillor, sorry, I've lost my place here. Councillor Maloney, second. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Nothing much to add apart from it. This is a weird anomaly in the middle of Belmont, just behind me, that it has gravel. So I'll be looking forward to having a hoon around that when it's bitumenised. That's nothing further. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on this one? Nope. Back to Councillor Harwood to close. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, the residents will be very happy this has gone through. Those who are against it have been widely consulted. There is hardship, or there are hardship policies within council that will protect them when needed. So this will be a small piece of infrastructure done to finish an area that has been feeling the dust impacts for many years. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All those in favour, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 12 is Amendment C399GGEE Armstrong Creek NVPP correction, consideration of panel report and adoption, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends the amendment of the Armstrong Creek NVPP correction is adopted and submitted to the Minister for Planning for approval. The proposed changes to this amendment are to be implemented to implement the updated methodology for calculation of native vegetation offsets, meaning there are no proposed changes to the status of native vegetation in either precinct. The amendment would help in assessing any proposed offset requirements in relation to applications to remove native vegetation. And this amendment was released to the public in March last year, with the City sending 2 submissions to an independent panel for consideration. The panel earlier this year found the amendment to be strategically justified by policy and recommended that it be adopted with the changes that are supported by the City. This report also states that the amendment would result in a positive social impact by paving the way for the more efficient and effective use of the land. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you. A procedural matter predominantly to further protect the environment in and around that particular area. So I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Back to Councillor Grisbeck.
I don't think there's any further thanks, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 13 is T22000023, LED and Smart Control Delivery Project, to be moved by Councillor Aitken. Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much. Mayor Usher, look, it's my pleasure to bring the actual tender document with the appointment of the preferred provider in Schroeder, Australia. This is actually phase 2 of this particular project. I turn the time warp clock back to July 2020 when Council adopted the first phase of our LED and Smart Control Delivery Project, where we, for an investment of $4.94 million, we converted 15,000 of our 25,000 streetlights. That particular project reduced our energy consumption by 60% and has caused us to actually significantly reduce our carbon footprint. This is phase 2, which is a total of 5,500 lights, and it actually shows you the cost increase that's actually occurring in this area of responsibility of council, because this time we're getting 5,500 lights for $3.17 million, and less than a year and a half ago we actually got 15,000 for $4.94 million. And this is part of our sustainability framework. We are committed to significantly reduce our carbon footprint, and this will mean, with the completion of phase 2, 20,000 of our 25,000 streetlights within Geelong will have been converted towards LED technology. That's a significant investment by the council to reduce its carbon footprint and reduce our energy consumption. And it's something that we should be applauded that we have supported this significantly in terms of our finances and investment support. So I congratulate the preferred tenderer, and I look forward to the switching on of those additional 5,500 lights. And the community should be encouraged to know that, yes, they do come with smart controllers, which essentially is a dimmer, but we are working on our policy about who can use the dimmer, because people do have different views about whether they want dim lights or bright lights in the community. We've got a set standard at which they are delivered at, but we have now got the technology to modify them. And as Councillor Maloney said at the previous item, that we do have some natural sensitive areas that probably do deserve to have the lighting turned down. But we are now working on a policy in the city services area to respond to engagement with the community about when we do use the dimmer switches associated with these smart technology LED lights.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. You're suggesting that there's power in the dimmers somehow. Anyway, over to Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Usher, and thank you, Councillor Aitken, for that illuminating response about the tender. I can only make so many lighting puns before people get tired of me. So I will just mention that this is part of a very ubiquitous technology rollout with respect to capturing data and making sure that we have the right information, the right controls around our pretty city. So with the rollout of this and the awarding of that this tender and contract, it will be interesting to see the data captured as part of our emissions reduction, as a part of the different controls that we implement within our sustainability framework, and to see what happens. That's all from me. Thanks, Marisha.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. I keep turning my mute button on because I've got noise in the background, so apologies for that. Do we have any other councillors wishing to contribute to this one? Nope. Back to Councillor Aitken. Thank you.
Nothing further to add, Mayor Asher.
Great. Thank you. We'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 14 is the proposed lease to Powercor, part of 110 to 122 Unity Drive, Mount Dunedin, to be moved by Councillor Maloney and seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Should have had more lighting puns up my sleeve. Apologies for that. The report is seeking to get Council's approval to engage with the community regarding the leased Powercor with respect to Unity Drive. There's an electrical substation that needs to be installed there. We have the Armstrong Creek West Community Hub that's currently under construction that you might see out there. And it's pretty essential to ensure that this substation works to supply power to all in the areas around. I'll leave it to my fellow councillor Sullivan to comment on this, but it's simply part of our community engagement to propose this lease out for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I certainly do endorse the electrifying words of Councillor Maloney in regards to this lease. It's shocking how quickly this infrastructure is coming around, and certainly well developed and certainly behind it.
Great. Anyone else? Any more puns? Okay, back to Councillor Maloney.
Really appreciate that, Councillor Sullivan, for highlighting all of these wonderful puns and initiatives, especially with respect to our submissions review panel. If submitters wish to be heard, there's something to be said about this proposed lease, but it seems to be pretty cut and dry. So nothing further. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Terrific. Thank you. We'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 15 is proposed road discontinuance of the new station estate to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Aitken. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report seeks council approval to start the process to discontinue some roads within a new station estate in Broderick Road, Corio. This estate is within the GREP, the Geelong Regional Employment Precinct. It's an historic inappropriate subdivision back from the 1930s, and although it was subdivided into 227 lots with road reserves as well, it was never actually developed, so the roads weren't constructed. At the moment, it's just empty land. The city introduced a voluntary purchase scheme back in 2002 to facilitate the purchase of those allotments from the private owners, and it has acquired most of the lots through that scheme. There is a new station estate restructure plan in 2010. It's also amended in 2017, applied to the land, which establishes the principles for redevelopment and includes a drainage basin for a wider catchment area. And as part of the redevelopment, the location of some of the existing roads won't be included in the final design. So prior to the development, we need to put these road reserves will need to be discontinued. Public notice will be given and a submissions review panel appointed if we need it, and then it'll come back to council to consider the outcome of it. I think it's a final step in the process of a long journey since 1930.
Great, thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken.
Look, continuing the spirit of tonight, this is an estate that never left the station, unfortunately, and as a consequence, the community spent the last 80 years, or 90 years nearly, to clean it up. We're nearly at the final point where we can put to bed that this was always an inappropriate residential proposal, and reclassify the land so it can have some usage and benefit for the broader community. Ideally, it will need rezoning if it is to go into some type of industrial usage. But the reality is where the site location exists, it probably is best to be left as farm land, but become productive in some manner. And it may even also be purchased at a future state by the Geelong Grammar Group, who are neighbours to this estate. So there are plenty of opportunities, but it still needs to be, it still from a planning sense needs to be fixed up, and that's what's actually occurring, another step towards that tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Anyone else want to comment on this one? Back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to be clear, this land is situated when you do take the first sort of Lara exit off at Forest Road. When you come off that there, just before the leather place, this is the area to the left of you. It's something that I always thought it was the other side. So I'm pleased that I read the report thoroughly and made sure I had my right area. But it is confusing because we have another estate on the other side under the same pretenses. So this one hopefully will be designed for industrial land, and it'll be part of the employment precinct that we've got down there in the GREP. Backs onto Broderick Road, and not the Broderick Road end where the rubbish dump is. It's on the other end of Broderick Road. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Context is everything. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 16 is the Harriet Estate Stages 1 and 2, revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots, to be moved by Councillor Harwood and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A procedural matter where the Council City Engineers have satisfied with the construction works done there to now remove the flood overlay of that particular area. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And this revocation will prevent the deluge of people trying to perhaps wanting to get their insurance sorted. It actually helps us to ensure that these people can avoid the 1 in 100 year floods because of the new drainage, curb and channel and other works that have been done in this area. So looking forward to seeing these individuals reduce the cost of their home insurance. Nothing further.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Harwood to close.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, we've got two more of these, so we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. The next one is item 17, the Ashbury Estate, stages 18 and 19, the revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots, to be moved this time by Councillor Maloney and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Again, internal drainage and roadworks, including construction in the area of stages 18 and 19 of lots of Ashbury Estate. It's really coming up in that area near Barrawari Road in Armstrong Creek. So again, work's done to prevent major flooding in this particular area and revoking that designation in that area. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Harwood.
No, Councillor Maloney's become more than proficient in these agenda items, so nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney, to close.
Oh, sometimes these revocations are a bit draining, but that's okay. You learn something new every day. Sorry, had to do it.
Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 18, last one, is the Warralilly Stage 40 revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots. Again, moved by Councillor Maloney and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. Just again, the revocation of flood-prone area, stage 40 lots in Warralilly Estate and Ambrosia Drive, beautiful part of the world. So again, revoking that designation so that people can, I guess, reduce the cost of their property insurance. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Maloney. Councillor Harwood.
Nothing further to add, and thankfully I think we've finished with the puns this evening.
Hopefully we have. Thanks, Councillor Maloney.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 19 is the Planning Authorisation Council to Staff, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might have one or two in here, Councillor Harwood, or you could do that if you like. The City has recently appointed some new town planner, Peter Wilkins, and a new senior statutory planner, Alastair Krause, or Cruz, I'm going to say. Thank you. And this is just the authorisation that we delegate from Council through to those officers to do their work under the statutory powers in the Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harwood.
Just welcome to the new staff, and in a nice quiet area of planning, they'll hardly know that anything's going on.
No, they won't be worked hard at all.
They won't know which way they're going.
Back to Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing further.
Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Section C is notices of motion, and this evening we don't have any, so that's a change. It's been a while since we haven't had any notices of motion. So straight into section D, which is the record of informal meetings of councillors. And may I have a mover and seconder for the record of informal meetings? Moved Councillor Sullivan, thank you. Seconded Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Section E is the planning delegations. May I have a mover and seconder for planning delegations? Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Harwood, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you, carried. And we're now going into the confidential section, section F, and I need a mover and seconder to consider the Audit and Risk Committee summary report in confidential. Moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded Councillor Aitken. Thank you. All those in favour, or did you want to talk to this one? No, this is going into confidential, isn't it? So we're just going to close on that one. So all those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. At this point, we now consider the remaining agenda item in the confidential section of the meeting. So that's the closure of the meeting for this evening. Thank you for joining us on the live stream, everybody. And next time we will be in the chamber and we will welcome probably a limited number of people to the gallery, but we look forward to seeing you in 3D. So thank you and good night, everyone.